How would you like to be more consistent with your driver? Well, if that's the case, you are banging luck, because that is what today's video is about. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to deliver the club a little bit more consistently to give you a better strike, and then ultimately learn how to play for your best shot, to hit more fairways, or at least be in play and hit the ball further and more accurately than you've ever done before with driver. So before we get onto the main part of the video today, if you're new down to my channel, welcome down to Ali Taylor Golf. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. While you're watching today's video though, if you're enjoying the content and you don't currently subscribe, I'd love it if you just took a second to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. That way I know I'm doing some good videos and you're enjoying it. Give it a thumbs up while you're there. But if you can do that, I'd massively appreciate it. But for now, let's get on with how to hit driver more consistently. So I'm on my TrackMan simulator on the 18th hole at Pebble Beach. And if you don't know the 18th at Pebble Beach, for a lot of golfers, this would be a tee shot that they would have sleepless nights about. So the majority of right-handed golfers slice the ball. Now the problem here is the ocean is all the way down the left-hand side and some very, very thick rough on the right. So what I would tend to see with golfers, and this comes down to this consistency factor, is for a lot of golfers, they'll aim at the middle of the fairway, put a swing on it, and we can see that one slicing out to the right, might just stay in play, but it's gone nowhere. And for a lot of golfers, they'd probably take that and be super, super happy. But the challenge is, if they've been hitting big slices all the way round, there's also that danger that they'll aim a little bit left to allow for that slice to try and get back into play. And there it is. In the water. Game over. So what do we need to do to be more consistent with driver? So I think the first thing we need to do is deliver the club a little bit more, maybe neutrally, to not take shape off the ball, but at least help us understand what we're going to do consistently, which would move us on to the second part of the video, which is about playing for the shape and eliminating one side of the golf course. But the first thing I would tend to see from those first two drives I demonstrated is that even from a good setup, what a lot of golfers will do with driver is they'll get to the top of the backswing, and on the way down, the club will work out, the club shaft will be very, very steep, the club will attack very steep, and then because there's not a lot of loft there with the driver, they'll either smother it left like we did with the second one, or they'll try and back up and get some loft on, and they'll carve that one out to the right. So the first thing we need to do is improve the way we get the club traveling into the golf ball, a little bit more shallow and a little bit more around the body rather than being so much down. And I think a great way of feeling that, and it'll sound a very odd one, and I actually had an online lesson, was doing what I'm going to talk about now, and he thought it was a bad thing. And once I talked him through it, he actually understood that it was really good for what he was trying. So a lot of us will be aware that if we're going to hit driver as far as we can, we'd like to get the club travelling up by the time it gets to the golf ball, and that's going to help the club be moving nice and shallow. But most golfers get that low point ahead of the golf ball, and that's where we get that very steep movement. So what I want you to try and feel is that when you set up to the golf ball, we're going to do some practice swings. As you swing towards the ball, I actually want you to feel like the club's going to touch the ground behind the golf ball. So if I did a little practice swing here with this tee, I'm going to try and touch the ground, maybe 6 inches behind the tee. Now, just missed the ground, but it felt like the club works more down and then shallow. So let's try that again, touch the ground. Yeah, so definitely touch the ground back here. And I know what you're thinking, hitting the ground behind the ball is not a good thing. Not necessarily. you know, I still think you can get some very good results as it kind of drop kicks the ball. But what we're going to talk about is if you can get that club to bottom out behind the golf ball, all we then actually need to do is make sure that the height of the arc is a little bit higher. And we can see I'd missed the ground and the club would be travelling back up by the time it gets to the golf ball. So obviously have some practice swings and get that feel, even if it's some little half swings to begin with. And you can see how the club's going to go down and up rather than very steep and that low point being ahead. So what I'm going to do, just on the simulator, I'm just going to aim this just slightly further right. So all I'm going to do is try and again feel like I maybe just brushed the ground behind the golf ball. And okay, that was good. So it turned over, ended up being a real tiger line down the hole. And what I want to see as we start hitting 2 or 3 of these shots, and obviously you can do it over more shots, is I want you to see if the consistency of the shape of shot becomes more consistent. Because for the guy who swings very steep across, I think, yes, we've got that big slice, but we've also got that pull, the top, the skied shot. And when you've got all those shots, it's very difficult to aim anywhere. So that first one definitely drew from right to left. So again, let's set up, let's feel that I'm going to just brush the ground slightly behind the golf ball. So setting off nice and straight. And that one actually flying very, very straight. So the first one with feeling that I touched the ground kind of turned over from right to left. That one actually flew very straight. So let's try another one of those. Again, have maybe that little rehearsal, get a feel for touching the ground behind the golf ball. So that one's setting off a little right and just stay in there. So for me, that last one just felt like my club face stayed a little bit open. So if I've now got that club bottoming out a bit early and starting to move up, I can feel that I can let the club face close a little bit more. That one a little bit out the toe as well. But again, very straight. And then what we want to be able to do is stand on a tee shot. And this is the second part. If we're starting to deliver the club well, we can move on to that second part. We can start to eliminate one side of the golf course. And when you listen to the best players in the world, that's what they talk about when they drive the ball well. They don't say they know they're going to hit every fairway, but they will say, I know that if I put a bad swing on it, I can't miss left. Or another golfer might say, I can't miss right. So definitely for me there, it feels as though when I get the club bottoming out a little bit earlier and hitting up on the ball, feels like I can't hit a big miss to the right, which would be nice, because on the simulator that would allow me to aim maybe just slightly right of centre. And then I can stand up there and just focus on what I'm trying to do with my swing. Felt a good strike, expecting it to turn over. Very, very tight and just hanging on. So that felt really good, but it felt controlled. Felt like I was trying to get it in play, which I'm sure is what you feel if you're somebody who struggles with that consistency with driver. And we want you to get to the point where if I now know that that movement is hitting it fairly straight or even a little draw, I can then put a little bit more speed in. Just again, focus on what I'm trying to do with that delivery. ripped it, it's gone dead straight. Now the bad news there is the line I've taken, it's actually gone too far on that line. But again, there was no big miss out to the right. And if you can really work on delivering the club, try to get that low point a little bit further behind, maybe so that club's moving a bit more shallow. You might not hit up, you might actually still even hit down, but if the club's moving more shallow into impact, your delivery and then club face control will be more consistent. It'll then show you what shape of shot you're going to get. For me, it tends to be straight to a little draw when I work on that. But for you, it might be fairly straight to a little fade. Once you understand what that consistency is from your delivery, you can start aiming and playing for that shot and start becoming more consistent with your driver. Right then, so we can see the key to being more consistent with your driver is first of all to try and make your delivery kind of consistent enough that there's not big changes and manipulations needed. Now, I'm not talking about trying to swing the club on a zero path, zero face. But if you with driver can get that club moving nice and shallow into the golf ball, rather than quite steep like a lot of golfers do, the lack of loft on driver makes it incredibly difficult if you're steep. So if you can be a little bit more shallow through impact, then it becomes a bit more about that little bit of club face control. But as long as you're more consistent with that, you're going to get a better contact and start seeing a more similar shape on the golf ball that shouldn't be too excessive. So once you can be consistent with the delivery, then you can start eliminating one side of the golf course and playing for that consistent shot. And if you can do both of those parts, you're ultimately going to be really consistent with your driver, and it's going to give you a great platform to score well. So guys, hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, like it and share it, comment below and I'll get back to as many people as I can. If you've enjoyed today's video and you don't currently subscribe to my channel, please consider clicking the button below. Remember to ring the notification bell and then you'll find out whenever I drop a new video. Follow me on all my social media platforms, all under Ali Taylor Golf. Hopefully catch up with some of you guys down here soon. Stay in contact.